Howdy there, friend. Today, we're fixing to talk about something folks can't stop whispering about around the campfire. A new show called Yellowstone, 1944. It's part of the big Dutton family story, and lots of folks think it's the next chapter after 1883 and 1923. Now, the truth is that nobody has spilled all the beans yet. But there's plenty of hints, rumors, and chatter online. We've been riding across the internet, gathering up every scrap of information and fan talk we can find. So, if you want to know about Yellowstone, 1944, stay in the saddle, because we're heading straight into Dutton territory. Where did the name 1944 come from? You might be wondering, why 1944? The buzz started late in 2022, then picked up steam in 2023. People on the internet noticed that Paramount, the company behind Yellowstone, filed some fancy papers for new Yellowstone shows. One of those might have been for 1944. Then, in some interviews, Taylor Sheridan talked about wanting to fill in more parts of the Dutton family story. After covering the 1880s and the 1920s, it made sense to jump to the 1940s. A time when the whole world was in the middle of World War II. We never got a big loud announcement saying, "Yes sir, Yellowstone, 1944 is coming." But we've seen enough signs to reckon that Sheridan and Paramount are cooking up something. Folks on forums like Reddit's r/YellowstonePN started talking about how 1944 would be the perfect middle piece between 1923 and modern Yellowstone. After all, a whole lot changed in the 1940s, and the Duttons would have had to face new problems and heartbreaks along the way. Why 1944 matters so much? If this show truly takes place in 1944, that sets it right in the heart of World War II. Back then, lots of American boys were overseas, fighting in Europe or the Pacific. At home, folks dealt with things like rationing, where you couldn't just buy all the sugar or gas you wanted. Women took on new jobs. Industries got mighty busy supplying the war effort. Here's how that might matter to the Duttons. Life on the ranch. With so many men gone to fight, the ranch might be short-handed. Maybe sons and ranch hands got drafted, leaving older men and women to keep things running. That's one big challenge right there, the war effort. War changes prices for cattle, crops, and supplies. The government might ask the Duttons to produce more beef or wheat. Maybe the ranch struggles with new rules and demands. Changes in tech. By the 1940s, cars and airplanes were more common, even on ranches. Some older cowboys might not cotton to these new ways, which could cause friction. A horse is a horse, but a tractor's something else altogether. Women's roles. Just like Cara Dutton in 1923 was a strong voice, the 1940s might see women taking on even more power while men are off at war. That could lead to new family dynamics and a bigger voice for the ladies of the ranch. Folks who liked the history in 1883 and 1923 will likely be tickled pink to see how the 1940s shaped the Dutton ranch. The world's in the thick of the biggest war it's ever seen, and Montana wouldn't stay untouched. Possible story paths. We don't know much for sure, since Paramount hasn't laid all its cards on the table yet. But fans sure do love to guess how Yellowstone 1944 might go. Some folks say we'll follow the younger folks from 1923, like Jack Dutton, now older and maybe with kids of his own. They think the show might show how the ranch survives World War II, while keeping true to the Dutton name. Another guess is that the story might introduce brand new Duttons who haven't shown up yet. Maybe they're cousins or nephews. If Taylor Sheridan wants to bridge the gap between 1923 and present-day Yellowstone, he'll need to show how the family tree grows from Jacob and Cara all the way to John Dutton III. Could there be letters from Cara, or old diaries, or cameo visits from older characters we met in 1923? That's got fans excited. There's also talk of bigger troubles that might show up. Maybe the government wants more Montana land for war training, or big companies come sniffing around. In every Yellowstone story, the Duttons end up fighting to protect what's theirs. The 1940s would be no different, just with a new set of baddies who want a piece of the ranch. Wondering about the actors. We don't know who'll star in Yellowstone 1944 if it happens, but that hasn't stopped fans from guessing. Some folks want the actors from 1923 to come back, like Darren Mann, who plays Jack, or Michelle Randolph, who plays Elizabeth. By 1944, Jack and Elizabeth might be older, so maybe they'd need a different set of actors. Or maybe we'd see them with a bit of makeup, if the gap ain't too big. If Spencer Dutton is still around, could he or his children show up? Others guess the show might need a fresh cast entirely. For all we know, it might focus on a branch of the Dutton family we haven't met yet. People also wonder if we'll see a cameo from the modern Yellowstone cast, maybe in a flash forward. That seems like a stretch, but you never know with Taylor Sheridan. He likes connecting storylines in surprising ways. What we hear about filming and production. Paramount's been real eager to keep the Yellowstone universe going because it's been a goldmine for them. 1883 drew in huge crowds, and 1923 did too. So it makes sense they'd want another show. Some fans in Montana have said they've seen location scouts looking around for farmland that fits a 1940s look. None of that's confirmed by official folks though. Taylor Sheridan is busier than a one-legged man in a horse-kicking contest these days. He's also working on 6,666, which focuses on the 4 Sixes Ranch in Texas, and a bunch of other projects. That might slow down 1944. If there's any talk about when we'd see it, folks guess maybe late 2024 or 2025, but that's just guessing. Paramount hasn't pinned down a date. If you mosey onto Reddit threads or fan groups on Facebook, you'll find people trying to play detective. Some keep an eye on trademark filings. Others watch the social media of cast and crew, hoping for a slip-up clue. So far, not much has leaked. Everyone's keeping quiet as a church mouse. The fan community's 2 cents. A whole bunch of Yellowstone fans are tickled at the idea of a World War II era show. We want to see how the Dutton Ranch deals with the war, and if any Dutton joins up and goes overseas. Some folks figure it might be like 1923 with multiple storylines, part at the ranch, part across the ocean. Others think we might stay put in Montana, focusing on how folks manage the ranch while the war rages far away. Some are worried that too many spin-offs could muddy the waters. They hope Taylor Sheridan's story continues smooth, without big holes in the timeline. Fans have been drawing Dutton family trees, trying to guess who ends up where, who marries who, and how the family keeps the ranch alive for so many generations. They want the facts to line up just right. Other fans are excited to see that older Western life keep moving into modern times. By 1944, the ranch might have tractors and trucks, and the characters might face new ways of living. Is that gonna weaken the old cowboy spirit, or can it blend together somehow, linking it to modern Yellowstone? One big question is whether this rumored 1944 show might tie directly into the present-day Yellowstone. Could they show us hints of John Dutton III's grandpa or grandma, or how certain family traditions got started? The Yellowstone writers love dropping small clues that connect different time periods. We might see the start of land disputes or deals that echo into the modern era. Some fans think flashbacks or flash forwards could show up. For example, in the main Yellowstone, we've seen glimpses of older times. Maybe 1944 could do the opposite and peek into the future, teasing how the Dutton Ranch changes by the time Kevin Costner's character is in charge. Or maybe we'll just get some real solid family backstory that helps explain why the modern Duttons are so dang stubborn about keeping their land. Things to keep in mind. While folks are pretty excited, we also got a few reasons to be cautious. Kevin Costner might be leaving or reducing his role in the main Yellowstone, and that's got fans worried about the future of the franchise. But Paramount keeps saying they want more Yellowstone, not less. So that might not matter much for 1944. The bigger issue might be how busy Taylor Sheridan is. If he's got too many irons in the fire, 1944 might get pushed back. Some fans also wonder about historical accuracy. 1883 and 1923 aim to be pretty true to real events, but they also had their share of drama. The 1940s had a bunch of big events, from battles overseas to changes back home. How close will Sheridan stick to the real story, and how much will he add for drama? That's something folks might argue about once the show airs. Then, there's the chance of folks getting tired of too many spin-offs. Right now, folks can't get enough of the Dutton name. But if Paramount throws too many at us, will that still hold true? So far, every new show has been a hit. So maybe it's fine, but it's worth wondering. What fans predict? Over on forums like Yellowstone PN, you'll find people who can't stop predicting how 1944 might go. One popular guess is that the show will split time between the ranch and a war zone, showing a Dutton soldier sending letters back home. Kind of like how 1923 showed Spencer in Africa. Another guess is that the Duttons might face a brand new villain. Maybe some big company wanting the land for a war factory or cattle production. Or perhaps some government folks want to build an airstrip or a training ground. The 1940s was all about expanding and building for war. There's also talk about love stories. 1883 had Elsa and Ennis, 1923 had Spencer and Alexandra. Maybe 1944 will have its own star-crossed lovers, struggling to keep their bond strong through the war. Fans figure every Yellowstone tale has heartbreak, romance, and a fight for survival. Doesn't matter if it's 1883 or 1944. The Dutton spirit is all about hanging on. A few fans think we might hear mentions of future Duttons from the main show, kind of like seeds planted for stories we've already watched, so it all lines up. People love it when you watch a new spin-off and suddenly realize, oh, that's how the ranch got that name, or that's why they have that feud with so-and-so. Is Yellowstone 1944 truly happening? That's the million-dollar question. Paramount ain't put out an official statement saying, yes ma'am, it's greenlit, but they've dropped lots of hints that they want more Dutton stories. Every new show has done real well, so it wouldn't make sense to stop now. Industry folks think Taylor Sheridan has a plan to fill in these gaps, but it's never guaranteed. Schedules could get messed up by a writer's strike or other bumps in the trail. Still, it seems likely that we'll hear more soon.